Greetings of the day to one and all present here. We are back with yet another edition of our podcast,
Footprints.
Leaving an Indelible Mark. I'm Mahima, along with my co-host Arush, welcome you to this new edition of the podcast.
The sole purpose of this podcast is to explore the remarkable stories and journeys of people who have left a lasting impact on this world. So, Mahima, can you give me the latest updates of our school?
Sure, the school has got so many things in its bucket. It has been on a winning spree in various events and fests like the K-Talks, ICAM event, the ZP matches, and the state level TED titles. Well, Arush, whom do we have with us today?
Today, we have a very special guest with us. It's Dr. Siddharth Nirman.
Could you tell us more about him?
Yes, indeed. Dr. Siddharth Nirvan is a multi-talented professional who serves as an associate professor in the Department of ENT, Head and Neck Surgery at Savai Man Singh Hospital and College in Jaipur. Beyond his medical career, he is a prolific author. He has penned out many successful novels, including India's first zombie novel. He is a prominent name when it comes to India's horror literature scene. He has also organized India's first horror literature festival called BoothCon.
BoothCon?
Yes.
That sounds interesting.
He has also made appearances on many book launches and literary festivals. His penchant for storytelling and his love for the eerie and unknown makes Dr. Siddharth Nirvan a captivating personality you won't want to miss. Join us as we delve into his world and the remarkable footprints he has left across various realms.
That was an amazing introduction. Namaste, sir. On behalf of GK Gurukul family, I'm Mahima and my co-host Arush welcome you to the next edition of our podcast. Sir, it is an honor for us to have you on the podium today, and we look forward for making this podcast an informative one.
For the smooth sailing of this podcast, I'd like to inform you that this podcast is divided into two segments. First, the questionnaire round, then it will be followed by the rapid fire.
So, sir, should we proceed with the question and answer round?
Absolutely.
The very first question for you, what pulled you hard into the wonderland of science?
So I think as a child, I always used to think that we talk about 7 wonders of the world, and we also term that now there are 8 wonders and so forth and so on. But I think that the human body itself is the biggest wonder that I can think of, because we have so many systems in our body. Just to name the digestive system, the cardiovascular, the heart system, the lungs, that the breathing system, and all those things, and all of them, they work so much of unison. So I think that that itself was a complete matter of fascination for me, and I just wanted to discover it more and more. So it wasn't just science; it was medical science I was attracted to. When especially I was in like 8th or 9th class, and I decided that I will go into the direction, so the natural path led me to become a doctor. So that was my fascination for it.
Sir, what caused you to go in the ENT department and not any other department? Like, what was so fascinating about that?
Okay, so ENT, many people don't know, but ENT is a hardcore surgical branch, and I was very much fascinated by the surgical fields. So, I was getting a couple. So we also have to like write exams and qualify, and then there are a couple of branches which are available. Yeah. So on my ranking, I had like a couple of branches, and ENT was the only surgical branch that was available. So it was natural instinct for me to go to ENT, and ENT is also a very thrilling branch, because most of our work, it deals with the airway. And sometimes in airway, anything that has to do with the airway, there is always emergencies. Like, for example, if a child has inhaled a foreign body, or there is somebody has attempted suicide, so there is a compression on trachea, or there is a road traffic accident, there is an injury to the neck, or there are suicidal or homicidal wounds, so that we deal with it. So there is a lot of emergencies also. So that in that way, ENT is a very fascinating branch for me.
Yeah. That's nice.
So moving on to the next question. Sir, during my 10th grade, I always wanted to become a doctor. I was very fascinated with medicine. So I started studying for the NEET examination, and I soon found out it's not a cakewalk and it's not as simple as I thought. So what is your advice for the future doctors and NEET aspirants who are planning to give the exam?
I'll advise anybody that who wants to become a doctor that see medical profession is very different from other professions, because in other professions, you think about how your career is going to advance, how much money you're going to make, and how much years you're going to invest and what the output is going to be. Perhaps medical profession is very, very different. You have to invest long number of years. It takes almost like 4 to 5 years to just complete your MBBS, then another year for internship, and then again, because today there is nothing without specialty. MBBS is nothing nowadays. So you have to again invest, you have to prepare for those competitive examinations again, and study for 3 years. So it's a very long journey that you complete before becoming a doctor. So that is one thing. And also the fruits that you receive after completing your all the degrees and all those things, they are not like too much. They're like very fascinating. So it takes some time. So the only person who should pursue a medical profession is that who is really interested into this entire science of medical world, and so that is the main thing. Otherwise, very soon, as you told that you realize that NEET is not a cakewalk, definitely. But what happens after that? Entering the medical college and then again going to the post graduation. So that again, it's not a cakewalk. So you might come out of it, you might pass those exams and become a doctor and all those things, but it's going to be very patient. I mean, you have to be really, really patient and really invested in this profession, invested in this journey. Otherwise, it's not for everybody. So I'll advise anybody who is looking nowadays for a profession that is high yielding and all those things, to not to come to the medical profession, because it's for different people only.
Yeah. Sir, I would also like to ask you, how did you manage your time as a student? I mean, how did you prevent yourself from all the distractions that today's generation is facing at par?
Well, the answer is simple. So in my time, all these restrictions were not there. There were no smartphones. There was the internet had just arrived. I'm talking about when I did my medical school. It was from 2001 to 2006. So the phones had barely arrived. The mobile phones, they were black and white button phones. So there was no internet. I mean, you can't play even songs in them or watch films in them. And what to talk about Facebook, Instagram? They were years ahead. So definitely it was very easy for us because there was no distraction. There were only two things that you can do in a medical college. I mean, any college. You can study or you could enjoy with the friends in the hostel. There was no other thing. So there was no distraction. That's it.
And how did you manage your overall time? Did you make a schedule for it as such?
No, when you enter a college, you don't have to plan anything different. You just go with the crowd, with your friends, and what is the atmosphere is there in the hostel. So you have to go to the classes, do a lot of things, and in the hospital, and then you come back, and then again you take a break, and then you go to library along with your friends. So you don't have to plan anything different. It's all like goes on auto mode. So that is not much of a that I have to do planning and plotting. It was very simple. See, life was very simple back in those days. There was nothing to be, do much planned or do some plotting about it.
Okay. The next one. So being an otolaryngologist is not an easy job. There are many difficult surgeries attached, as the one that you had performed, wherein a peanut was stuck in a child's nose. So what was your state of mind at that point of time, or how did you manage to keep yourself calm? We would like to know your experience about it.
Yeah, definitely. So there have been several instances and many instances. I mean, for us, it's a day-to-day routine that a peanut is tucked in a child's nose, or actually, that is not a huge emergency. When a peanut is tucked in a child's, let's say, the airway, that is the trachea and the bronchus. So that is a real emergency because your trachea is the only pathway for someone to breathe, right? Because for the lungs, the air to go into the lungs, that is the only way, and that is blocked. Then it becomes a real emergency. See, the doctor basically, or the surgeon who is there operating in the operation theater in the emergency OT, he's like the leader of the ship. He's the captain of the ship. So he has to maintain his calm and composure in any circumstance, because if he loses his cool, then everybody is going to go berserk. So you have to rely upon your clinical skills that you have learned, your experience that you have garnered, and the teachings that your senior have imparted, and you have assisted in a lot of those circumstances, and you have seen how your seniors, they didn't used to lose your calm, and ultimately you have to play with your mind, not with your heart. Being a doctor in any field, not only in ENT but in any field, because for a patient it doesn't matter that you are sympathetic to him or her or not. For the patient it is important that how skillful you are you able to save his or her life or not, and how what difference you can make in his or her health and condition. That is more important. These are just flowery talks that you have to be very patient in all those things. Yeah, I mean, you have to be very sympathetic with the patients. It looks good in talking, but actually you have to be very skillful, and you should know your job. That is more important rather than being nice to patients and all those things. That's a very practical thing.
Sir, so moving on. The next question is, post-COVID, we have become very cautious about our health, and we have started using many products to keep ourselves healthy and clean. So I have a question that my family always says that, don't use alcohol-based sanitizers. It's not good for you. Go and use the hand wash, which is present in the bathroom. So is it true that they're not good for children or anyone in general?
See, what happened is that during the COVID pandemic, the use of sanitizers was very much overemphasized, because everybody was scared. Nobody wanted to carry an infection to his home, right? And this definitely was very important in case of medical professionals. So we came from the environment where the COVID patients were admitted. I have personally done duties in COVID ICUs and all those things. So everybody was scared. But what happened is that we became too much conscious about this thing, right? Especially if you're talking about sanitizers, alcohol based or not alcohol based, that I'm not aware about. But the only benefit, the people who benefited out of it were the companies who were making sanitizers. And what happened is that personally I've seen a lot of patients, a lot of people, a lot of my friends and relatives also, who were too much conscious. So they developed some kind of skin conditions, especially in their hands, because they were using sanitizers after every 5 minutes. So that was too much. I think a basic process known as washing your hand with a soap is enough. So that is lasted since centuries, and that is the only thing that you need. But there is no. I mean, I don't think any logic in using any sanitizers and all those things nowadays. Of course, if you don't have soap, the facility of water and soap, you can carry a sanitizer. But having maintaining too much of hygiene and cleanliness actually also actually brings down your immunity. So immunity basically develops when you have this exposure to allergens and infections in the childhood, and that's how your immunity develops. If you don't have this exposure, your immunity, you'll always be immunocompromised. Let me tell you.
Okay. So the next question for you. Nowadays, the Gen Zs are always filled with junk food in their minds. So according to you, are there any specific dietary changes that we all should inculcate in order to have a balanced and healthy lifestyle?
See, again, I'll say that nowadays there are a lot of advertisements, there are a lot of facilities, availabilities, which were not there back, 20 years ago. There are a lot of brands have come which were not there. And it is very difficult to avoid junk food. What we call junk food is basically what? Junk food is basically a food that gives you pure calories. It doesn't have any let's say, it doesn't contain multivitamins, multiminerals, right? Proteins and all those things. But we must understand that junk food is only a junk when we do not make use of it. Let's say if you consume a junk food, let's say if you consume a McD burger, and then you go out to play basketball or cricket. So you utilize the energy of that junk food into play. So what is happening nowadays is that we are giving too much of emphasis upon eating healthy, right? Which is not practically not possible. Definitely, junk food should not be made a daily routine, but once or twice a week, I think it's not bad either. And more emphasis should be given for physical activity. So that's most important. So see, our ancestors, no, they didn't used to differentiate between what is healthy and non-healthy. They used to have a lot of oil, a lot of ghee. They used to have a lot of sugar, and they used to eat everything, right? And they used to eat in excess. But they also used to be physically very active. They used to keep on moving from morning to night, right? unlike us, we are just made a habit of sitting in our maybe school, class, or home, or wherever, right, and playing with our device. So that is, in my personal opinion, that is something more important rather than just all these health products have come in the name of health. We are spending too much of money, so that is something that we should be conscious about. Definitely, junk food should not be made a routine. It can, but it can be done in moderation. That's it. More important is to keep on moving, keep on doing, have a sport, have a hobby, that so that you're physically active, right?
Okay.
So, moving forward, nowadays we have heard of a lot about Nipah virus, which is similar to corona and dengue. So, what precautions should we take to avoid another epidemic to occur?
See, regarding Nipah virus, I don't have limited information. I just know something that it has an origin from bat, and in India, a couple of only a few cases have been reported. And see, these Nipah virus or dengue is a regular in India, because wherever there is not good environmental conditions, wherever there is stagnant water, which is a very frequent finding in India, dengue, malaria will always be there. We cannot eradicate it. And the only thing is that we should be aware about what is prevalent, first of all, and we should keep our surroundings clean. Cleanliness around us and in our locality, all these things is very of utmost important, that we don't give much importance to. But I must say that these things keep on coming, and whatever you do, it's difficult for us to stop these pandemics, because see, when a pandemic occurs, it occurs on an unimaginable scale, and if everybody knew what to do with corona, it would not have happened. So only thing is that we should be a little bit aware about other things, because these things are different. See, dengue is totally different. It is mosquito borne. Corona, nobody till now knows where it came from. And Nipah is supposed to have its origin from bat, but again, a few cases have been reported. So I think we should be more conscious about the cleanliness around us. So dengue, malaria is something which can be controlled if we try effectively, right?
I have a question regarding this. As you said, Nipah is a halogen from bats, and we have heard many diseases which have occurred due to a transmission from animals to humans, like bird flu, corona, Nipah, and etc. So how can we take and prevent these diseases to get we for us to get affected by them? Like, we go and play with street dogs or street cats, and what should we do, like, to save them or to save ourselves?
I'll advise not to think too much, because if we start thinking like that, so we'll be scared with everything. Not only with animals, we'll be scared in going out. We'll be scared in meeting people, shaking hands with people, right? Using of overuse of sanitizers. So you should not be too much conscious about it, and you should only thing is that if something is there out there, definitely you should be alert about it. But see, what will happen will happen. You ultimately, you have to live your life and enjoy it, right? That's what I can say.
So the next question. So it is believed that antibiotics have ill effects on our body, especially on the liver. So whenever the children catch cough and cold easily, the doctor prescribes a list of antibiotics. So according to you, is this good for their health, or how important is it? Or can we go on for any alternative medicines?
Yeah. So there is the real threat that is looming especially in country like India nowadays. When you talk about antibiotic, is a term called antibiotic resistance. What is an antibiotic resistance? Is like, let's say I fall sick and I really need an antibiotic. But because I have taken antibiotics in the past when they have not been necessary, so my body has developed a resistance to the antibiotic, which means that the antibiotic now, when is needed to cure me, is not going to work. So that's a real dangerous situation, which is actually there in India. Now, there are two reasons for it. The first thing and the most important thing is the injudicious procurement, or let's say you go to a pharmacy store and you want an antibiotic, let's say amoxicillin, which is a very, very common antibiotic. So without a prescription, the medical person will give you amoxicillin. So there is no regulation about it. That should not happen. In the West, if you go, you can't even take a crocin, that is for fever, without a prescription. Number one is that. that is fine. I mean, should not be applicable for all medicines, but at least for antibiotics, there should be a strict government regulatory that without prescription they should not be prescribed, because that is what has resulted in antibiotic resistance. And what you talk about that doctors prescribing, see, it again depends on the skill of the doctor. It is just not the degree that makes a doctor. It depends on the skill of a doctor, that he is able to recognize or not. Let's say if you develop a sore throat and a mild fever, so there are 99% chances that you're having a viral infection, viral pharyngitis. And a viral infection traditionally doesn't require any antibiotic. But if you're using antibiotics in every case, let's say somebody is using, he's not trained enough or skillful enough, then there is going to be this antibiotic thing called antibiotic resistance. And also the another issue which happens, I don't know you know or not. So there are a lot of doctors who are associated with pharmacy companies, and so a lot of prescription that is being written is also incentivized, right? So that might depend on the intention of the clinician. So nowadays it's very important to choose the right doctor. It's just not the degrees and where he has been trained and all those things, but to choose the right doctor. That is the biggest thing, the biggest decision that you have to make while you're going to a doctor, because there are a lot of things that goes undercover that you as layman nobody knows about it, right? So that's one thing.
So now we'll be shifting gears from the world of medicine into the captivating realm of books and reading. So I'd like to ask you, we have heard that you have recently visited the Bhangar Fort. Did you experience any paranormal activities there?
So the typical answer that will be expected is that yes, I witnessed a lot of activities, but sadly the answer is no. And I'll tell you something about these kind of places and these kind of things. I actually I'm friends with the top paranormal investigators in the country. Like there is the Indian Paranormal Society. There is a guy called Sarvajit and Pooja, and then there is a person called Jayalani. So they are the most followed and respected people in this genre, and I have talked a lot with them. And they what they have told, because they are people who day in and day out, they are going to these places and trying to record all those things. So paranormal science basically is a very like any other science. And right now we are very very far away in establishing the presence of supernatural entities, which in my opinion they do exist. But what I learned after talking to these investigators is that they are pretty harmless, and they are not visible, or anybody cannot sense them or something like that. So they are very unlike what we see in films and maybe read in books. What we read in books and see in films is pure entertainment, but what happens in reality is there, definitely, but it's not something what everybody can perhaps feel or see. So unfortunately the answer is no. I did not feel.
Sir, do you think feeling the sense of paranormal activities happening around us is connected to a spiritual sense? Like people who have unlocked, people meditate for hours and hours, days. Do you think they are more capable of going through paranormal activities, or is it something that anyone can go through?
Okay, so I have a friend, and again, as I mentioned, her name is Pooja Vijay. So she is someone who is what do you say? She's a psychic, and the closest reference which I can give to a psychic is that if you've seen a film called Conjuring, so there is a film series called Conjuring, right? And so in that there is a real couple that is based on the life of real couple, the Warrens, Ed Warren and Lauren Warren. So Lauren Warren is the person who is a psychic, which means that she can feel and see things which are beyond the perception of an ordinary human being. Although in the film it has been too much of exaggerated, but Pooja, as I know, is a psychic. So she basically goes to these haunted places, and she tries to communicate with the entities from the other side. And she has felt and seen a lot of spirits. And what she has told is that what happens in reality is that these spirits are not actually which are threatening. So these spirits are actually who have been trapped after death, and they are not able to go to the next life. So it is actually the spirits who need help, and she is somebody who helps those spirits in getting free from the material bondage which is there. So the total paranormal, the real paranormal world and the this science is totally different from what we see in films and movies, and that only you can understand after talking to these people.
So, sir, do you believe in such paranormal activities or any time of point? Have you experienced them anytime in any of your visits to the forts that you've been? Or
Not to the forts and all those places, but I must say that once when I was a child, I was in my sixth class, sixth grade. So I and one of my friend were roaming because it was a month of June, the summer holidays, and there was practically nobody on the outside. I'm talking about Ajmer in Rajasthan, so it's very hot in summers. And so I and my friend were roaming outside, and just out of curiosity, we happened to visit a graveyard, a Christian graveyard that was there in a colony. So it happened that I was a child back then, right? I don't At the time I had no sense of respecting or disrespecting the graves. So just out of curiosity, I happened to step my foot on one of the tombstones, right? And I heard such a loud noise in my ears that I thought that for instance the chowkidar, the watchman of the graveyard has seen us and he's shouting us. But then I turned around and there was nobody. There was totally nobody. And I asked my friend that, did you hear the voice also? He said that no. And it was so loud voice in my head that, see, after so many years, after almost like 30 years, I still remember to that date. So there should have been definitely somebody. So somebody was definitely screaming from the grave below. So that was something unforgettable. And a couple of instances have been there, but not that too much. Again, as I'm telling that, what generally we feel, let's say if you are scared of these things, scared of watching films and reading horror stories, and if you go to Bhangad, and if I make in Bhangad for a night, then you'll imagine everything. You'll imagine, all the ghosts and the chudels and everybody coming. So it is your mind that is trying to deceive us, and that's what fear is all about. Fear is about deception. Your mind basically believes that those things are there. So it depends on person to person.
yeah.
This story really gave me goosebumps. So I would like to proceed to the next question. Do you believe there's a connection between the body's physiological responses and fear, or is it more psychological?
See, what we mention, what we talk about is psychological, no? So that's not something is totally like in air. That is totally in our thoughts only. It doesn't happen. So our psychology influences everything. Our psychology makes us decide what to do or what not to do. So, like for example, like we're talking about junk food, right? So it's our psychology that will make us decide whether to go for that Maggie burger or not, right? So it is our psychology that will tell us that whether we should switch on our smartphone and open Instagram or not. So whatever happening is the psychology, right? What that war is happening right now between these states is again a psychological warfare, right? So somebody is afraid of somebody and somebody is afraid of somebody. So it's all psychology, right? So definitely, psychology just not remains, like that. It definitely affects our entire body. Again, just to give you example, so if I were to keep you in Bhangad for a night, right, and you're not allowed to escape, and have this psychology of fear, so then what will happen? What will be a reaction? Your heartbeat will begin to rise. You'll be sweating. Your pulse rate is going to go high, right? And so like that. So definitely that's a term called psychosomatic manifestation. So what our psych thinks, our soma means body, so that manifests. So definitely, so fear definitely affects our. So we have seen like in films or maybe in sometime real life also that by just watching a bhoot, somebody had a heart attack, right? So that's again a psychosomatic kind of a thing.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a wonderful explanation to all our curious minds. The next one, sir, have you used your medical knowledge in order to make your horror scenes more realistic or gruesome?
Yeah, definitely. So, most of my stories, they are centered nowadays in the medical world, and definitely I have an advantage that coming from this particular field, I can use the actual knowledge and the actual factors to enhance the writing which I do. So lot of I think things, scenes, and all those things. I have used my knowledge to improvise all those things. Scenes.
Sir, if you could diagnose one of your own horror characters with a medical condition, what would it be?
I think one of my horror characters. So yeah, interestingly, there is a I wrote a book called Dead People's Town, and I have this sorry. So I have this book with me right now. So that is a book, Dead People's Town. And if you are aware about zombies, right? So this is a book about a zombie outbreak in a hospital, and sorry, yeah, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
sir.
Yeah. Okay, so just connection just went off. Okay, so as I was mentioning, you talked about a diagnosis. So there is a condition known as Prader-Willi syndrome. It's a very interesting condition in which a person is always hungry. So he keeps on, craving the entire day. It doesn't matter how much food he has had, he will always be hungry. And if you know about zombies, zombies are always hungry. So that might be a condition maybe. So zombies are ever hungry. You put a living person in front of him, he will always go after it.
Okay.
So the next one, what was the scariest real life medical experience that you've had which influenced your writing?
Okay, the scariest, I'll not say the scariest medical experience that I had, which influenced my writing, but definitely one of my book, which is about to come, maybe later this month or earlier next month, was influenced by a real life medical incident. The incident was very tragic in the sense that a couple of years ago in a medical college, which I think I'll not like to name, is that one of the students, third year MBBS student, he basically, the same kind of story that he thought that he was in love with a girl, his batchmate, and the girl didn't love. He just used to think that he was just his friend. So that guy basically got so much enraged that one day he entered the medical class, the college, while the lecture was happening, and he stabbed the girl right in front of everybody. And the girl, just to defend herself, she ran out of the class, but he went after her and kept on stabbing her until the girl died. So, and then this guy, when he realized what had happened, so he went to the top floor of his boys' hostel and he jumped and committed suicide. So that was a real life incident that happened a couple of years ago in a unnamed college, medical college in Rajasthan. But that really shook me so much that how a writer's mind is. So he will create a story out of everything. So that was something that stayed with me, and I just began to ask myself what might have happened between the two, and what if the girl she died, and what if she, let's say, she is still haunting the girl hostel where she is. So that made me to write a book which is soon to be released. It's called Night at the Medical Campus. It is told from the perspective of first year MBBS students who just entered the medical college. And years ago, a girl was similarly killed, and her body was went missing from the post-mortem room, because after such kind of death, a post-mortem or an autopsy is done, and was never found again. And it was alleged that the girl still roams in the medical campus. So that was something, that was an inspiration. Not a very nice inspiration, I must say, but yeah, that's how a writer's mind will work. He will create a story out of anything.
This was something really jaw-dropping. What are the elements for, I like to ask the next question. What are the elements for drafting a short story? And can you give us some tips to help us weave our thoughts into a picturesque story?
Okay, so if you really ask me what are the elements, so first of all, I must say that, see, I'm not a trained writer. Many people are there who actually write books. They are either regular readers who have been, or they have maybe learned some kind of writing. I have just self-learned my way in writing. So I don't know what the elements are there or what are the difference between there. But what I've realized is that, because my first story was a short story, and what I realized is that the basic difference in a short story and a long story is that In short story, it's just like if you see cricket, short story is like 2020, right? And long story is basically like a one day or a test match. So in a short story, you have to keep the story moving. There has to be action at every page or every paragraph. The story has to go in a flow. There is not much time to give description about the characters, their past lives, or their flashbacks and all those things. So in a long story, definitely you have a lot of scope and you must do, and that's how the reader gets connected with the character emotionally. In a short story, that is not the thing. So it has to be a little bit fast paced and something like that. Maybe it's a horror, maybe it's a crime, maybe it's a romantic story. Things have to be moving. That's why I realized after written a couple of short stories. And regarding a picture story, I haven't done, but I made a film. So that is something I know about, which was a home kind of a film, which I also released in YouTube, and that was in when YouTube came in India. So that was something I know, but I haven't done a picture wala book, so I am not much aware about it.
Okay. Thank you for such a nice information, sir. The next one. So despite such a busy schedule, what was the striking point that shifted your inner attention towards writing novels, and specifically the horror genre?
Okay, I answer the latter part. Why horror genre? So, see, I'm a 80s kid. So I was born in the last day of 1981, right? So my first 10 years of life, I've lived in an era where there were again no smartphones, no internet. There was not even cable TV, right? So all these channels that you see, nothing was there. There was only Doordarshan, on which only a couple of programs used to play. So our entire free time was spent in roaming with the friends and reading comics, right? And I'm not talking about the English comics, Marvel comics, and all those things. I'm talking about Hindi comics, which I don't know present generation might be aware or not. So there were a lot of Hindi Indian superheroes and a lot of comics. And this comics, there was this a series called Thrill Horror Suspense, which basically means horror. So basically they were horror comics, in Hindi, set in India. So that was one thing. And I used to see a lot of films. And again, there was a culture of video cassettes and video libraries back then, long before CDs even had come. Now the CDs also are obsolete. So at the time also, I used to see a lot of films. And I happened to see a film called Purana Mandir that was released in 1980s. It's a Ramsey Brothers film. Ramsey Brothers are the largest horror filmmakers in the entire world. So they are a group of family brothers, 5, 6 brothers who used to make only horror films. And I was blown away by the concept of Purana Mandir. And I had seen this film at around 7 to 8 years of age, when I was in like 7 or 8 years of age. So since then, I have been like attracted towards this particular genre. So it was natural that, whenever I will do something, I will do something in the genre. So I made a film first, basically. I released it on YouTube, as I talked about. So that was something, my version of a paranormal activity happening in a medical college hostel at that time, 10, 12 years ago. And then I started to write books because I realized that I cannot make films again and again and again, because obviously you need a lot of money and time for it, right?
Yeah.
So moving on to the next question. We have heard that you're a fitness freak. How do you extract time from your busy schedule to maintain a regular workout routine?
I think for every person, no matter what the age is, whether you are in your teens or 20s or maybe in your 50s, 60s, I think health I'm not telling because I'm a doctor. I mean, health is the most important asset that you carry. It's not your home, it's not your vehicle, right? Or maybe the money that you have in your bank. Because health has to be the first prioritized and most important asset. Because if health is not in the right place, then everything will start falling apart, right? Because I have seen personally in my distant family and some friends also who have been afflicted with bad health, and the entire world, the entire life revolves around disease and hospital visits and all those things. So that has to be the priority, I think. And if a person, I believe, if cannot take out, let's say, 30 minutes in a day, 24 hours, right? 30 minutes or 40 minutes in a day, then he has all the right to fall sick, and get admitted and come to us. So I think health has to be the most important part.
So last but not the least, after reaching such a beautiful ladder of success, looking back gives a sense of pride. So who was your source of motivation throughout the journey of MBBS and further ahead?
See, I don't believe in terms like success or failures, right? So I don't think that I have achieved being successful, or maybe I failed in a couple of things. I do think that there are landmarks that we have to achieve. Let's say, for example, as a student, your landmark is what? Your landmark is to secure good marks in your upcoming exam. So that is all you can think about. You can't think about what is going to happen to you 5 years later or 10 years later. And so step by step, whatever comes in your way, your aim is to achieve that thing. Even if you fail, you should use your failure as a stepping stone. So failure is the biggest teacher in the world. There is no better teacher, most inspiring teacher than a failure. Because if you read the lives of people who have made it really big, like people who have founded Facebook and Amazon and all those things and Apple, so you will understand actually that they really failed big. So they have been the biggest failures in their lives, in their schools, colleges, and all those things. But because they learned from it, they were able to take it forward and make it so big. So I think I don't talk about failure or success, but yes, if you talk about inspiration, inspiration is something that you are inspired by people who are ahead of you in your own field. Let it be the medical field. So they have been like hugely inspiring doctors. I've been inspired by them, and you want to become like them. And when you start to write, I'm in the book world, so you are inspired by the authors whom I know personally and who have helped me a lot, and you also want to. And I must say that this entire process of whether it's your profession, I mean the medical part, or your passion, or like the writing part, whatever you do, you should. The most important thing is to enjoy and not to think about what is going to be the outcome, because then you'll always be in stress and anxiety, and your entire life will become a race. So I write because I enjoy, and I also practicing my profession. As I said, it is not for everybody, right? Because I enjoy doing it.
Sir, I have a question regarding this. You said success is nothing without failure. So people usually give up as soon as they fail in something. How can they build themselves back up and not quit the deed they're doing?
One practical advice that I'll give, and this is what I understood in only recently in the past few years. So, as I told you that unlike the other authors, if you talk to any other author, he or she will tell you that she has been interested in reading books since school years or college years, and they have been reading for quite a long. It was very different in my case. I wrote my book first, and then I started to read. So that was total reverse in my case, right? I started to read because I understood that if I have to continue writing, then I must understand the ropes of writing, and that is the reason I'm reading regularly nowadays. But reading books actually opened me as a person, and personally it made me a better version of myself, and I myself am able to deal with the failures in a much better way than I was able to do when I was a student. So a lot has changed inside me through reading books, because reading books actually opens up your mind, and you start to know about a lot of other things happening in the world, and about people, reading autobiographies and biographies. Or I'm not even talking about non-fiction. Even reading stories and fiction, they will take you into another dimension. And whatever is happening, let's say, in your life, right? So that will not affect you much, because you happen to live in another world only, right? So that is one thing. So my practical advice is that you should always have a habit of reading. It may be anything. It may be even a comic, right? Or a storybook, right? And it's up to you, because that will make you a strong person from inside. And all these things, when I'm talking about, there are so fantastic books out there, which are self-help books. I learned a lot from them, right? So it's beyond the scope to name, but I gained a lot of personal insight after reading books. That doesn't happen by watching television or by watching OTT series. There's a very famous saying that let's say there is a person who reads a lot, so you'll always address to another person that, see, he's a very well-read person, right? But let's say there is a person who watches a lot of films and OTT series and all those things. You'll not say that he's a well-watched person, right? You don't appreciate. Nobody appreciates a person who watches, yeah. But people do appreciate. Even if you're a reader, people will appreciate you, and it will help you. So by reading, different kind of books, you will grow as a person. Everybody, and failures are inevitable in one's life, whether they are in competitive examinations or personal life. So you will grow out of it. So do read anything.
Thank you, sir. That was really wonderful advice for all of us out there. Now we'll be starting with the rapid fire, and here you're supposed to give spontaneous answers. The very first thing that comes to your mind has to be told to us.
Sure.
Can we begin?
Yeah.
The first one, tea or coffee?
Tea.
Beach vacation or mountain getaway?
Mountain getaway.
Pizza or burger?
Pizza.
Early bird or night owl?
Nowadays early bird, but I have been night out for my entire college life.
Reading a book or watching a movie?
Honestly speaking, I also read, I also watch, but I don't know. It depends on the movie. It depends on the book.
Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix.
Comedy
I
or
only see one. I only see one OTT platform. There is only one OTT platform in my phone and my device. That is only Netflix. Nothing else.
comedy or drama?
Drama, because comedy is very difficult to make. If somebody makes a good comedy, then and there have been a very few comedy films or whatever.
Gymming or jogging?
Jogging.
Who's your favorite hero?
Favorite hero? Okay, Tom Hanks.
What was your favorite subject in school?
Actually, it was history,
Oh,
but I'm a different profession.
okay. Which was your favorite horror book?
Horror book. So I'll not say one book, but my favorite author I can say. So that's like Stephen King. So anything by Stephen King is like a fantastic for me, even if it's horror or not.
What is your go-to pastime?
My go-to pastime, yeah. So my favorite pastime is if there is a new film on Netflix, horror film, or anywhere else. So my pastime basically is to in night I will lock my room. I'll tell my family that I am busy, and then I'll shut off the lights, and then I'll watch the film alone after closing my doors and windows and making it dark.
Okay. The last one. What was your favorite age so far?
My favorite
Age.
age.
Yeah.
I pretty much like my age that I am right now. I'm 41. I'm pretty much truly enjoying and loving it,
That's
which
nice.
I didn't expect.
Okay. So we would like to conclude our fourth podcast here. So thank you so much for giving your time and interacting with us. It was a lovely time. We got to know so many new things today, and we were humbled to have you on the podium today.
We'll surely inculcate all the values you have spread to today, and you have helped a lot of students, and all our viewers who are going to watch this podcast, they are surely going to get enlightened with the words you have given to us today.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
I'm sure this would have been one of the striking personalities we've ever had on the podium.
Yes, indeed. It was an enriching experience. And we would like to thank GK Gurukul for giving us this golden opportunity of interacting with such a marvelous personality.
We would also like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our director, Ma'am Jyoti, and our principal, Ma'am Mayuri. This has been an amazing experience for all of us. Here, we would like to conclude this edition of our podcast. Do stay tuned for more such editions of the podcast. Happy podcasting!